Hello, my name's Peter Kay, and I'm going to read some of Chapter 1 from A Very Alternative Coast to Coast, which is my latest book, and it's a story of three men who embark upon a walk of misadventure across the north of England. With collapses, falls, getting lost, walking in the wrong direction, it's touch and go whether they'll get there at all. Be regaled with stories from the landscape and their experiences along the way. Meet a Lithuanian flamethrower, a bunch of lycra-clad Geordies. Join them on 2 hair-raising trips on the little white bus. Hear about the man-mounted pub crawling coast-to-coasters. And meet a woman in a cafe leading to a clandestine relationship. It's all in the book. And the book can be got from the Book Dragon at Stockton, Read in Home Firth, Waterstones in Bradford, via Amazon, or directly from myself by contacting me on my Facebook page. So, Chapter 1. They stand on the platform of St Bees Station at 10:15. For James and Mick, it has been over 4 hours since they boarded the train at Leeds. Andy joined them at Skipton after his early morning of panic and chaos. The taxi that was supposed to come at 5:30 to take him across the hill from Otley to Leeds had not appeared. In a flap, he'd persuaded Melissa, his wife, to drive him to catch the train. However, realising that getting to Leeds in time would be extremely challenging, they drove at speed to Skipton instead, arriving 2 minutes before the Carlisle train was due to depart. Mick hopes to persuade Andy to stop for a take-out coffee on the way, but the change in circumstances, texted whilst he and James were on the train, dissuades him. Mick is therefore not in the best of moods on the journey to Carlisle, having missed his early morning coffee fix. Andy is fearful Melissa will wreak some terrible revenge for being dragged out of bed, literally if he is to be believed, in order to get him to link up with his 2 walking buddies. Her presence always seems to dog him on his walks, much as it relieves him to join up with his 2 companions. At least they have time at Carlisle station to grab a coffee and a slab of cake before boarding the Barrow train, now pulling slowly away. But by the time they reach Carlisle, Andy says he's feeling less concerned about home. He's received a text from Melissa, hoping he has a good 2 days. The coffee and cake improve Mick's mood too. "Which way then?" asks Mick, directing the question at James, who has been responsible for planning the excursion and the route they'll follow over the next 2 days. "Well," says James, "it will be a long day's walk from here to Wasdale Head, so we could forget about going down the path to the sea and just head inland. After a couple of miles we will follow the official coast-to-coast route until we get to the Black Sail Hut, and then leave the route by going over the pass into Wasdale." "What? Start a coast-to-coast walk without visiting the actual coast?" says Andy, clearly unimpressed. "I only said we could. If you want to, we can walk to St Bees Head and then retrace our steps, or even follow the official route from there, although that would add a couple of miles more." "Hang on a minute," says Mick. "How far is it from here to Wasdale Head?" "About 24 or 25 miles, says James quickly, as if doing it that way might make it seem less. "Bloody hell," says Mick. "What time are we going to get to Wasdale Head in?" "Between 7 and 8 o'clock in the evening," says James, secretly hoping his calculations are accurate. "How far would it be if we went down to the sea?" asked Andy, already resigning himself to an answer that will almost certainly rule out such an essential deviation. "About a mile, so a couple of miles there and back," says James. "If you follow the official route from St Bees Head, you're adding a further 4 miles to our day's walk." "Well, I hope we head east from here," says Mick. James looks at both Andy and Mick and knows they're disappointed, but that they will agree. Mick always plays the peacemaker. Once he's had his coffee fix, anyway. From here it is, says Mick. What about you, Andy? James asks. Seems that heading east is the only sensible way forward. Lead on. The three head off, with James scrutinising the map closely to work out how they will negotiate the next half an hour until they cross the A595 and pick up the road to Clearter, when his navigating skills will be less required, assuming the official route is well signposted. He also knows the sea is only half a mile away from the station, but that had he been completely honest on that point, the likelihood is they would have headed there and probably added another 40 minutes to the day's walk. Whilst they have walked similar distances to today's in a day before, they usually set off walking much earlier. As it is, the discussion on the platform adds a further 5 minutes, and he is angry with himself for not resolving the matter on the train. He had suggested it would be around 20 miles when they met to plan the walk, and it was only after carefully researching the route he realised it was nearer 25 miles. This was more like one of their earlier challenge walk days, ones they'd previously agreed should be consigned to history in favour of shorter distances and more time spent in the pub, catching up and reminiscing. Mick is inwardly fuming, albeit no one will know. Even without the additional visit to the coast, 25 miles is much further than he wants to be walking. He knows James well enough to know if he says 24 to 25 miles, it will be nearer 25. And 7 to 8 o'clock means James believes it will be 8 when they get to the Wasdale Head Inn. Given they will need a shower and change, they will do well to be dining by 9. He'll need at least a couple of hours after eating before trying to get to sleep. It is as if the day has already become a route march like some of their earlier challenge walks. He shrugs his shoulders, and this reminds him of the weight of the rucksack on his back that he usually asks James to adjust the straps for him before setting off, and then again after each rest stop. He wonders how many of those they'll manage today. James, would you mind managing adjusting my straps, please? Of course. I'd forgotten to. He smiles up at Mick, hoping he'll be forgiven for the length of the day's walk and his dishonesty at the station. Do we turn left or right? Asks Andy, for they've arrived at a crossroads of small lanes, but the junction is minus any signpost to guide them. Right, James says with a cursory glance at the map, which is enclosed in a waterproof carrier. He hasn't a clue, but at this early stage of the walk he needs his companions to have full confidence in his navigational skills. He believes either way will eventually deliver them to the A595. Andy is inwardly focused on life at home. Will Melissa remember Millie needs to be at swimming at 11? He debates texting a reminder, but knows she'll take it the wrong way. He mentioned it yesterday and on the morning dash to Skipton, so it is not as if he hasn't done his bit. He also got Millie's swimming bag ready and put it on the kitchen table where it will be visible to all. Even though Millie loves the water, her lesson will not probably be the focus if she picks up the latest Harry Potter book and starts reading. If he was there, he would both limit such activities and take her to the baths himself. If Melissa gets involved in something else at home, she'll forget. So, what highlights should we look out for today, James? He asks, as much to take his mind off home as to discern what may lay ahead. James has taken time to study the route and any specific features that may interest them. Well, Clearter's the first proper village we will come to, so there may be a tea shop there, if we've time. Once there, we will be on the official route and have a climb up of a Dent Hill before we drop to Nannycatch Beck, which is supposed to be quite a picturesque valley. We carry on to Ennerdale Bridge, which should be our lunch stop. After there, we walk along the right-hand side of Ennerdale Water and then up to Black Sail Hut, the remotest youth hostel in the lakes, before we go up and over Black Sail Pass before dropping to Wasdale Head. Sounds easy when you describe it in a couple of sentences, says Mick dryly. quickly adding in a more even tone, "A tea shop in Clearter sounds most appealing." It's 11:30 when the A595 is crossed, and they are following a sign that proclaims, "Clearter, 2.5 miles." If there is a tea shop, it does not reveal itself, although the village has some redeeming features, the parish church of St Leonard's being one. Of more interest to all three is the clear coast-to-coast sign directing them between two houses and across the River Hen towards Blackhow Farm, and beyond that Blackhow Wood. They can see Dent Hill rising in the distance beyond. It secretly relieves James there is an absence of a tea shop. At this stage of the walk they don't need any undue time delays. Mick is resigned to drinking coffee from his flask, whilst hoping at the very least Ennerdale Bridge will provide somewhere to get a proper coffee.